to the red.
Good evening, everybody. It's Thrift Barringer with Richard Holdridge, and it's another edition of Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show right here on the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Facebook page, YouTube channel, and Twitter. I'm Thrift Barringer alongside my partner in crime, Mr. Richard Holdridge. Richard, how has your week been going since last time we were live, which was yesterday for the Glenwood Coaches Show? How's it been going so far?
So far, it's been going pretty good. I'm looking forward to this week, and I'm glad that we're able to just cover all the events that's going on in the Tri-City area. And when we have these events, it's just really fascinating that we're building our brand, and all these people are liking and subscribing to the Facebook and YouTube channel. And I just love it because we're able to cover sports and give these student athletes exposure.
Yep, and thank you again to our sponsors, the ones that make this possible. I really want to give a shout out to Jody Crum and his staff. Thank you so much for showing the love. Everything we've been doing since last year, he has been at the forefront of what we are trying to accomplish here at Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And I guess that's where we can start, which is at Glenwood. I'll let you take the lead on this, Richard. You were there yesterday for the Glenwood's coaches show. They didn't have one last week. It was a bye week for Glenwood. But what were some of the things that you were talking with? When Coach Nelson came up and everything that he's looking forward to with homecoming this week. Last time we saw them, they beat Lee Scott, the defending state champion. How was it, and what'd you learn?
Well, Wes Hargrove did a great job filling in for Coach Purdue and Chris Blackshear. He jokingly around saying that he was the third stringer. Coach Nelson was great. They talked about just what an incredible game against Lee Scott Academy. They had the bye where they went back to practice. Not a whole lot of time off getting prepared for Valiant Cross Academy this Friday. It is going to be homecoming for the Glenwood Gators. And there's that graphic. Yes, the Glenwood Gators are 5-0. I was looking at the schedule, Thrift. They do have a Taugaville Academy, which is 4-1. They're playing Lee Scott this week, by the way. And they
Right.
also have Chambers Academy that has won 5 straight games. Those are pretty tough matchups. But if you look at what they have been through so far, they've been battle tested. Big wins against Pacelli and Brookstone and Lee Scott. This time last year, they were 2-3, but Glenwood is 5-0.
Well, and Glenwood is a team that we have seen played Pacelli, who's the number one team in GIAA. They beat Lee Scott. They beat Brookstone, who just beat the number two team in 4A last week on the road against Stratford. Huge win. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But Glenwood, obviously, I think one of the top private school right now. They're undefeated. They got a bunch of great wins under their belt, and they're playing a Valiant Cross that just they're inferior to say the least, and they're a team that have gotten blown out. And this is one of the main reasons when you're a homecoming team, you're the one that teams are picking to be their homecoming. You know that you're on the struggle bus, and it's been struggle for Valiant Cross. I don't expect Glenwood to have any problems. They're going to dominate. We really won't touch on that as a preview because it's going to be a blowout. But Coach Nelson has just done a phenomenal job. Dallas Crow at the end of the year. It's going to be tough, man, picking the best quarterback out of him, Alford, uh, Gary Gaither, Mr. Christian Brown's been coming on strong for Pacelli. I mean, Caden Clay of Northside. These guys have been balling lately, but I have to put up Dallas Crow. I mean, these teams undefeated. They're number one in the state, and by far he is one of the main reasons why they are so good. And you've been high on him since last year, Richard.
Absolutely. And I've been looking at some stats earlier today. Andrew Alford for Central, he has thrown 20 touchdown passes. Well, Dallas Crow has got 11 touchdown passes, but he has 9 touchdown runs.
Yeah.
So he has accounted for 20 touchdowns just as Andrew Alford. You talked about the great quarterbacks in the Tri-City area. We also got to put Mark Calzada from Schley County in that. He's got 16 touchdown passes. But Thrift, I do want to say something here on the show. Just a special prayer goes out to Teo Todd. We did receive the word today that he is out for the season, and I hope that
Oh,
he's able to
jeez.
recover.
No. What happened?
So he got injured in the Whitewater game 2 weeks ago. I found out from Kevin Eckleberry from BTV Sports that he wasn't playing in the Stars Mill game. Troop County did lose that game 20-18. But he's going to recover. He's going to be playing at Georgia Southern. He's just not going to play in the regular season. But
So
we
his
hope for
senior year.
his senior year. It's over, but he's going to have a speedy recovery. And I know that he's going to do amazing things at Georgia Southern.
Yeah, but I hate it for him. I hate it for
I
Coach
do.
Glisson. I hate it for the Troop County fan base and community. They've been waiting on this moment for a long time. They were the favorites, or one of the favorites in 4A to win it all. To lose someone like that, obviously, is going to be almost insurmountable
It
to
is.
come back from that devastating of an injury. Teo Todd, we talked about it. He has been a highlight factory since this day he became the starting quarterback for the Tigers of Troop County. I hate that for him. That makes me sad, and we're going to keep him in our prayers. And we're hoping that
Yes.
Coach Glisson can still rally his team, finish out the year strong, and maybe they can get on a hot streak. You never know. I've seen it before, so we'll see what happens. But Richard, let's start recapping some of last week's games. And we can start with the one we were at, Northside and Westover. Northside won 34-20. Westover was able to make it a closer game than the score indicates. Caden Clay was phenomenal. But I think the highlight, and we talked about this at high school game day, which, by the way, we'll talk about how great of an atmosphere that was for Pacelli Gatewood. But Northside just took him to the woodshed, and mainly one of the ones that was leading them back to the woodshed and Westover was Kingston Rivers. I know nobody's seen the highlight and him trucking over a man,
Oh, man.
that was just one of many highlights he had. He was sensational, as I like to say.
Thrift, you play Madden, right? Or
Yes.
played Madden. So you
Yes.
remember the hit stick? It
Yeah, the
was the
truck stick.
left, the truck stick, the joystick on Madden on the right side. If you're playing Xbox or PlayStation, you would just bulldoze a player over. And this was a feature in the game of Madden. That's what Kingston Rivers did to his opponent on Thursday night. It was absolutely incredible. We were up in the press box. I think that there was a better angle when the news people, WRBL, WTVM, were down
Yep.
on the field. So you could see it a lot more clear, but it's still up in the press box where we were. You could
Unreal.
definitely see it and feel it, and it was just incredible. And Kingston Rivers, have yourself a game, 3 touchdown passes. I know his father, Jonathan Bam Rivers, has got to be proud. And Northside, they got to buy. They're 4-2, but you know what's coming up in 2 weeks, Thrift.
Oh yeah. Well, and
We'll get
we have
there.
plenty of time to
We
promote
will.
that one, I promise you, because that weekend alone by itself is just, I mean, so many region games, so many rivalries going on. It's going to be a lot of fun October the 6th. But from Northside and Westover, we don't have to put the graphic up for this one, but Central dominated Jefferson Davis. I mean, that game wasn't even close. But let's go to the biggest upset, in which was Brookstone going to Macon and upsetting Stratford 20-14. Brookstone started the season 0-2. They got beat by Glenwood, which we know how good Glenwood is. They got beat by First Presbyterian Day. They're a really good team in the GIAA. They started 0-2, but then they beat an undefeated Mount Zion. Then they go on the road and beat the number 2 team in 4A in the GIAA, Stratford, who just lost the previous week to Pacelli. They go and they were up 20-7. They pretty much had to lead the entire game. Coach Gillespie's team, shout out to Chris Vickerson. He's a tight end / defensive end. He was sensational. The quarterback, Richard, which you know so well. I was going to let you say his name.
Oh, Brooks Roney.
Yeah, Mr. Roney, because you always bring up Roney all the time. Brooks was great, and just a big win for Coach Gillespie, which is going to set up that Brucelli game next week, an even bigger matchup as they go now to 2-2. Again, just like with Pacelli, Brookstone, both of them had slow starts. Both of them got dominated by Glenwood, and we're seeing losing to Glenwood is not a bad feat. But you counted them out. People were like, well, then they lost the First Presbyterian Day. Both games were at home, Glenwood and First Presbyterian Day. You lost by double digits. This Brookstone team's going to go 5-5, 500. Pacelli, they lost to Glenwood. They're not very good. They were struggling. They're going to be 7-3. This is going to be a down year for both programs compared to last year's success. No, both these teams may make it to the state championship and face each other. We may see them play in the semifinals like we did last year. Brookstone, Big win against Stratford. Any thoughts, Richard?
Well, the truth about Roney, he's a great quarterback, and I think that he has really taken over the realms for Andrew Alford, who's now at Central. He's poised in the pocket, and he's got a great running back, Lane Cannon. And we got to know some of the Brookstone players at Brookstone Media Day. Now they take on Whitfield Academy this week. Whitfield
Right.
Academy is 1-4, and we all know what's happening in 2 weeks. I mean, next week is going to be a very important show for us because there's going to be a lot of rivalry games that we are going to talk about. And we all know, which in my opinion, I'm just going to come out and say it. I know it's 2 weeks away, but Brookstone Pacelli is the best rivalry in Columbus
Going now, because Carver Spencer's
right now. Yeah.
they got more history in other rivalries, but right now, considering the fact that Brookstone and Pacelli played last year in the playoffs, I mean, I put Glenwood Lee Scott too. I mean, that's a rivalry. They played in the state championship. Between Brookstone and Pacelli, Glenwood Lee Scott, those two are the biggest rivalries going right now around this area for teams that we support. And I consider Auburn close to the Tri-City area. I know Jack and Hoppy and WRBO and WTVM, they covered those, I mean, Lee Scott program, but I'm with you. I think it's going to be an exciting matchup next week, but big time win for Brookstone. Moving on now, Richard Shaw beats Jordan 42-6. That puts them at 500 now, 3-3. That I mean, this was expected. Again, Jordan is not going to win many games this year. They may not win one. This was not going to be one of those games where I thought an upset was going to happen. Shaw just takes care of business, and a big win for Coach Gardner gets him at 500 and puts him in position to make the playoffs again. Hardaway is the number 5 seed in that region. They're 0-5, but this Shaw team, even if they make the playoffs as a 4 seed, I think that's a big accomplishment for Johnny Gardner. But they could get some upsets here in the next few weeks and manage to get a 2 or 3 seed. That division's still up for grabs, but a big win for Shaw against Jordan.
Absolutely. 3-3 on the season. Now they begin their region play. They travel down to Cairo to take on the Syrup Makers. They also got to play Bainbridge, who won the region last year, Westover, which we saw against Northside, and then, of course, Hardaway. Thursday night game at Kinnett Stadium on October 19th.
Yeah, so we'll move on from that one. Again, a dominant win by Shaw. And then I'm looking, there's a lot of buys around this area, but I guess we'll go to our game of the week, Pacelli and Gatewood. We were there for high school game day. Corey Black set us up beautifully. It was it was homecoming week, so a lot of alumni were there. They saw what we were doing. Just one of our best game days. And we had Corey Black pull out the mascot headgear, which is pretty cool. Pulling the Lee
Yes.
Corso. And Gatewood, I know the score says Pacelli 35-0. They did dominate, but Gatewood is the number 1 team, was the number 1 team coming into the game in 2A of the GIAA. Pacelli number 1 in 4A. But Gatewood just a small roster, only about 28 kids on the team. Pacelli obviously's got close to 50, and they took care of business. Their running back tandem was just dominant. You know, the I called him lightning and thunder. Corvée James, he did what he was supposed to do in taking care of business. You know, he can do a little bit of everything, but they had 4 or 5 guys that got touches in the backfield. Enjoyed calling the game with Dave Plata and Pacelli. Back-to-back weeks beating a number 1 team. They go to now 4-1 on the season. They got a bye before they got that Pacelli game. Richard, you were on the sideline. You were up there with us during the broadcast. Talk about high school game day, and then talk about how the game went. In your opinion.
Well, I was blown away by high school game day. Just the fact that I got to be a part of it with Dave Plata being a picker and athletic director, Coach Corey Black as a picker. It was incredible, and I was humbled because I realized that Dave Plata, he knows everything about every single high school in this area because he's been
I
doing
mean,
it for
why wouldn't
30
he's been?
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's been covering them for 30 years, Rich.
I truly was blown away by his knowledge, and I love just being a part of that, and I also loved being a part of the broadcast, shadowing you and Dave Plata, and listening to you guys. First of all, I gotta say, Viking Live. Big shout out to Jeremy Hayes, Drew Plata, his whole staff, student run broadcast. They have just state of the art equipment. It looked amazing. I got to go down on the field. We had our post game show on our Facebook page, and I was just so happy to be a part of it. It was just a great night, a great event. It was homecoming, a lot of Pacelli fans there, and it was incredible. And Pacelli 5-1. They have won 5 straight games.
Yeah,
Incredible.
incredible, and great win for them. Just some other scores that we can throw in there. Schley County against May County. That was number 1 versus number 2. Schley County just completely obliterated Macon County 34-7. Let's see. Lee Scott beat Macon East. They got back on the right track after that loss against Glenwood. And Flint River. Shout out to Joe Howard of Flint River. That was his WTVM game of the week. They took on Lakeside. It was 3-1, and Flint River beat them 40-0. I got Flint River winning the state championship this year. If you don't know who Flint River Academy is, look them up. They're a 1A team in the GIAA, small school in Woodbury, but they're boys. Uh, they can play. They're big, they're physical, they're athletic, and they have dominated a couple of teams that Lakeside I know very well. Calvary, we were there for that game, so put Flint River up there as another team that I think could win it all that we have covered this year.
I look at this Flint River team, part of the Chattahoochee Valley. A lot of people don't know about Flint River because they are a small school. But Woodbury, the town just comes out to watch their Flint River Wildcats, and they went to Eufaula. This was a border war, and this was WTBM's high school game of the week. They knew how big this game was, and what a dominant performance by Flint River Academy on the road, having to travel all the way down to Eufaula, Alabama to get this win. And I agree. I think the Flint River is going to have a special season,
Mhm.
and I'm looking forward to not only giving them some love when we do this show and trying to get score updates on our broadcast, but just covering them basically throughout the season because they're now on our radar. I mean, if you don't know about Flint River before, you know about them now.
All right, let's talk about it's time for some preview time for this upcoming week. And with that said, we'll talk about where we're going to be and how excited we are. But you know what? Before that, let's break some news. Matt Call and is the general manager of Happy Hour Bar and Grill, and we have partnered with them. They will be broadcasting our games every Friday night on their television screens. We're excited that they're doing that for us. But not only that, we're going to do this every other week. All right, Georgia, Alabama Sports Live Show, like we're doing right now. We're going to do it every Tuesday live from Happy Hour Bar and Grill. They're going to have discounts for people that come up there to watch the show. We're excited. We're going to have great guests. Next week, we already got great guests lined up. We're going to have not celebrity pickers, but celebrities around the Columbus area. We're going to have coaches. It's going to be a big time show next week. We'll be doing around 7:30. We'll have a digital flyer out there promoting it here in the next couple of days. But next Tuesday is going to be one of our first in-person live shows that you can come out. We'll be on stage. We'll be talking all things high school sports related, our review and preview show, talk some college football, talk some NFL, have some great guests on, eat some good food, get a drink. This sounds like a good time, Richard.
It really is. And I'm just excited just to be a part of this. And we are really making it an event. And it's just going to be a great atmosphere, great food, happy hour, sports bar and grill right there in Phoenix City, very close to where Glenwood is. And, they do such a great job promoting us and having the games on the big screens and really just being a part of it. We expect to see a lot of people out there, and I cannot wait for our celebrity guests coming on. I mean, we have some ideas of who might want to come on the show, and we just continue promoting this, and it just gets bigger and bigger, and it's an event that I'm looking forward to every other Tuesday.
Yeah, I am too, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But we're still going to do the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show, um, and I can't wait to be there next week. I thought this was pretty cool. We were talking about doing a live show, and you know, i- it's pretty cool to see someone support what we're trying to accomplish. And most of the time, it takes time to get these opportunities, but it's pretty cool that we're getting it so early on. Remember, we've only had Georgia Alabama Sports Live since June. It's only been about 3 or 4 months.
Right.
Like, give us 3 or 4 years, who knows where we're gonna be. So, it's small now, and I know many people are seeing what we're doing, and they're, like, we're tired of seeing all the content. I've been putting out a lot of stuff, but thank you again for your support, and thank you to Matt, Dave, and everyone at Happy Hour Bar and Grill for being a supporter of ours, and looking forward to doing the show there next week. All right, let's recap some, or not recap, let's preview some games this upcoming week. And we'll start on Friday. We're going to be at two places. We got a doubleheader. First, we're going to have high school game day live from Russell County. They have their homecoming game. They take on Valley. We're going to be there for that. And then Valley 3-1 taking on 0-4 Russell County. Richard, you'll be on the call for that game. You've called many Russell County games in the past. You were the PA announcer there for a long time. What are you looking forward to? I'm excited to be there. Dylan Griggs will be on our high school game day show. We're going to have AD Larry Knox, and our guest picker is Russell County alumni and Carver Tigers baseball coach, award-winning baseball coach at
Oh
that,
yeah.
Michael Long. So we got a great show in store for you on high school game day. But let's talk about the game. Valley coming in as a team that probably going to make the playoffs this year in 2A. Russell County not started the way we thought. Ever since that very close loss in one of the best games of the year against Harris County in week 1, Russell County's been going backwards. They've been playing some really good teams, but this would be a huge win for Coach Griggs to get back, get in the win column, and defeat, I would think, a really improved Valley team.
Yeah, Russell County is 0-4, but they are continuing to improve because they did play Wetumpka very hard. Wetumpka did beat them 52-36. Backup quarterback Bryson Riggins had 5 touchdown passes. And then you also have Russell County 2 heartbreaking losses to start 0-2. They lost to a great Carver Montgomery team in week 3. I mean, this team is fighting hard. Coach Griggs has got them playing at a high level. And I know that Russell County will eventually get some wins. And this is a team that they beat in 2021. Valley used to be a region opponent for Russell County. They were in 6A together. Valley went down to 5A. Valley missed the playoffs last year, but Valley's got a great third-year starter in Cam Dooley. And they got one of the top corners in Alabama, Jay Harper. And so this is going to be a great matchup. It's going to be homecoming at Russell County, and I'm happy to be back at my old stomping grounds. I'll see a lot of familiar faces. It's going to be exciting for me to be back at Russell County.
Yeah, and I know you're looking forward to being on the call, and I'm hoping Russell County gets a big win. I know Valley, you can consider them part of what we're doing here, Richard, but I'm cheering for Russell County, and I hope they get a big win. The other game that we're going to be doing is probably the game of the week, and I know it is for the WRBL Prep Zone. Sandy Creek, number 1 in the state in 4A, taking on 5A Harris County, one of the most improved teams in the state, 4-1. Richard, what do you think is going to happen?
I think it's going to be a great game. Sandy Creek is the defending 3A champions. They are 5-1. This is a very good football team. Harris County has exceeded expectations. They went 2-8 last year. They've doubled their win total. I know that Harris County, they're going to be excited. It's going to be an exciting time. WRBL and WTVM are both going to be there for high school game of the week. So you know this is going to be a big game. Rick Beach from Kutsu Sports was talking about this game. This is the game that we put on the calendar, that this was the game that we wanted to see. And I cannot wait for this game. But I just think that Sandy Creek winning the state title, I know they're a 3A school and Harris County's a 5A school. I know that this is going to be a very tough task, but I think that Harris County is going to give them a fight.
I think they are too, Richard, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to be there. The county's going to be rocking, and they're taking on Sandy Creek, and I can't wait to see Sandy Creek and Harris County and what should be a great matchup. Levi Watson, one of the, again, most improved quarterbacks, along with his entire team. Coach Tommy Watson has got a powerhouse of a running back and Mr. Matei Yeoman. And I like this Harris County team. They're my favorite to win the region. I've seen McIntosh, I've seen Northside, and I know Harris County Northside play next week. This game really doesn't mean anything region-wise or classification-wise. These two teams won't face each other. So even if Harris County does lose, they still have everything and all their goals still in place. But it would be a phenomenal win if they upset Sandy Creek. You got to start putting them as a top 10 team in 5A. They're right on the precipice. They're a top 25 team. Harris County, Sandy Creek on the Georgia Alabama Sports Live YouTube channel. Probably going to go live on my Facebook page as well. Russell County game will be on the YouTube channel, and me and Richard will be at both places. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, now let's move on from Sandy Creek. Let's talk about the Carver Tigers. They take on Columbus High. Carver 2-3. That is not what any of us expected. I thought they'd go 9-1, 8-2 this year, and they've lost 3 straight games they could have won that came down the wire. Brookwood, a 7A school, they could have won. Hateville Charter, they got stopped right at the goal line. Brookwood, same thing. And then the week before that was against Northeast Macon. All those games came down to the last play of the game. And if they ever can, they easily could be 5-0. I know they're 2-3. Carver is, don't count them out, Coach Coffey. You're just going through some growing pains. They're a young team. I think they're going to obliterate Columbus High. I love Phil Marino, but they just ain't got the horses to keep up with Carver. Carver's mad. They've lost games they shouldn't have. I think they're going to dominate Columbus High pretty thoroughly.
I was on the sideline at Kinnett Stadium Saturday afternoon when Carver was taking on Hateville Charter. A lot of mistakes was made in that game. Hateville Charter had a pick six. Carver just could not move the ball down Hateville Charter's secondary. I was on the sideline, witnessed Damian the Nighthawk Daniels coaching up the DBs. Jack Patterson from WRBL was right there with me. A photographer from the Ledger Enquirer was there. I forgot his name. So it was a big event. And that was my first Carver game. Can you believe that, Thrift? That was my first Carver game because I've always done Russell County games. Huge fan base. And they showed up at Kinnett Stadium on a Saturday afternoon when we're all paying attention to college football. I mean, this is how loyal the fan base for the Carver Tigers is. Heartbreaking loss. It was a game where Carver, they're getting ready to take the lead. They missed the extra point. Hateville Charter, they get a quick touchdown and then they recover an onside kick. So the score was deceiving because Carver was in this game. They were down 20-14. They score a touchdown to make it 20-20. Now, if they kick the extra point, they would be leading 21-20 with about 4 minutes to go.
Right.
But Hateville Charter, the quarterback threw a bomb. I mean, this is gutsy to throw a bomb and the receiver just grabs it, and it was just like, wow, Hateville Charter scored a touchdown on a quick strike to the wide receiver. It's now 27-20. And then Carver comes back and scores a touchdown. It's 27-26. Well, Carver said, look, we're not going in overtime against Hateville Charter. We're going to go for 2 here. Well, they fail the 2-point conversion, but Hateville Charter gets it it's a crazy onside kick play where Hateville Charter did a scoop and score.
Yeah, well, that's it. A couple balls that don't break their way. Same thing that happened in the Brookwood game, getting stopped on the goal line. But from every angle that I saw, Carver looked like they got in. They probably got screwed out of that, and no replay. Remember, that's not happening till the playoffs. So that would have been something that could have been a game changer if they were able to replay that. But I think Carver's going to dominate this one. Don't count them out. We were actually going to do the Hateville Charter game before we decided to do Pacelli Gatewood. If they would have kept that Hateville Charter Carver game on Friday, we probably would have done it. But they moved it to Saturday. It's just hard. I was up at Athens covering the game, Richard, so it would have been a difficult task to be able to do that. All right, let's move on from that one, and let's go to Shaw as they go on the road against a region opponent in Cairo who's 5-1. Shaw 3-3, 500, won back-to-back games since starting the season 1-3. I think this is more of a moral type stand where Shaw can keep it close. Maybe they can pull the upset. Cairo, the favorite to win their region in 4A. I'm not willing to go on a limb yet. We'll pick this game on high school game day. But I've been really impressed with seeing Coach Gardner's group. They they've lost some games that, like, especially at the beginning of the season against Marion County, they could have won. Got shellacked by Harris County, and then got beat by Northside pretty dominantly. But since then, they've won back-to-back games against Columbus and Jordan. Now they go on the road against Cairo. Is Nicholas Bates back? Do you know if he's back, Richard? And if he is,
Yes.
I'm glad the senior got back healthy since Harris County, and he's probably one of the main reasons why they're 3-3 now. So anything could happen. This is number 1 in the region versus number 4 in the region. Richard, what do you think is going to play out on Friday night in
Well,
Cairo?
Nicholas Bates is definitely back. They did put up 42 points against Jordan. They're now 3-3. They're taking on the syrup makers of Cairo. Fun fact about Cairo: it is the birthplace of Jackie Robinson. I just wanted to throw that out there because
Yeah,
that's a nugget that I knew about even before I
Richard's
moved to Georgia.
Nuggets.
Yeah. No, Cairo is one of the top teams in their region. They surprisingly did not win the region last year. It was Bainbridge.
Wow.
These two teams are there's 5 teams in 4A Region 1. You have Hardaway, Westover, Shaw, Bainbridge, and Cairo. Only 4 make the playoffs. But if Shaw is able to get a big win over Cairo, they're in the driver's seat to make the playoffs. Because you still got to play Westover, still got to play Hardaway, still got to play Bainbridge. But Shaw can just continue to go up from here. And I love the defensive play of Sidney Atkins. He is my favorite defensive player. I've called his number a couple
You
of
get a vote
times.
at the Sports Visions Awards luncheon that's on December the 7th, Thursday, December the
Oh, I
7th.
do.
Yeah, so you'll be. DJ was saying when you get a vote when we make these, when we pick for the award winners. These, I think it'll be
Nice.
17th this year, 17th, 16th or 17th annual Sports Visions Awards luncheon, and so I'm guessing you're leaning towards him. But I'm with you, Richard. If they anything can happen. If this is a game where Shaw doesn't want to get into where they got to score a lot of points, because when they play elite defense, it's a little bit different scenario than playing Shaw and Jordan and Columbus when you take it on Cairo. If they can keep this a low scoring game, keep the time of possession in their favor, they could pull the upset. But going on the road is going to be could be a difficult task. Doesn't derail the season though for Shaw if they do lose this. Brookstone on the road. You talked about Whitefield. Brookstone, big win last week against Stratford. They're 2-2. I think they're going to dominate Whitfield, and they're going to go to 3-2 after this one. Whitfield just then they don't have the horses. They're a smaller school that, again, this is not a region game. They're in a smaller classification in the GIAA. And Brooks Roney, as you talked about earlier in the show, when you have to take over from a guy in Andrew Alford who's doing what he's doing at Central, all eyes are on you. And then you start the season 0-2, and you struggled against Glenwood and First Presbyterian Day to come on strong these last 2 weeks and being one of the reasons why they won. I think Coach Gillespie, this is more of a tune-up as they get ready for that Brucelli jug next week.
I expect Brookstone to dominate this game because they're not overlooking Whitfield Academy and preparing for the battle for the Brucelli jug in 2 weeks, but they have their eyes on that Brucelli jug. I mean,
Yeah.
we heard the Brookstone players
They
during
want
media
that
day.
more than
They want
anything
that more
ever.
than anything. They talked about their number 1 goal this year is to beat Pacelli. Yes, Whitfield Academy, they've got to focus on them. You don't want to overlook any opponents, but I mean, that was a huge win, huge last week against Stratford Academy. And so Brookstone, riding a 2-game win streak, they got a lot of momentum. They're going to be 3-2 going into Diamond Field in 2 weeks. And I know it's 2 weeks away, but I'm too excited. I just had to
I
throw that
would be
out there.
too. Like I said, it's been one of the top rivalries in all of sports. So that's going to be all high school sports around this area. So it's going to be a good game. But Brookstone, don't overlook Whitfield, but I expect them to dominate. Kendrick, you ain't got to put the graphic up for this. Takes on Ace Charter. Ace Charter is probably the favorite to win that region. Kendrick 2-3. It's going to be tough to go on the road to win that game. Ace Charter and Spencer, by the way, that's the last game of the season. Last year, that determined who won the region. So I expect that one to be something similar. Spencer got a big win last week against Rutland, 26-7. I know we didn't put the graphic up. And Spencer, ever since starting 1-2, excuse me. They've won 2 straight. They're 3-2 now. Gary Gaither's back to being absolutely phenomenal. Dre Duncan, he's been a lead on the defensive side. I like this Spencer team a lot. And Coach Joe Kegler, took him some time this year. I know when they lost against the one of the Macon teams and then lost against Carver. Many people were thinking, well, Spencer, look at this. They're not living up their potential. Everybody thought they were going to go 9-1, and they're just going to only loss would maybe beat a Carver. And many people thought this was going to be the year they beat Carver. But again, losing a Carver, that doesn't derail your season because you're not even in the same classification or region. I
Nope.
think they're obviously going to beat a team in Jordan who's in their region. They're going to go to 4-2. Like I said, Ace Charter versus Spencer. That's probably going to determine who wins 2A region down here in the South.
And by the way, Gary Gaither was in attendance at the CB Hoops Perfect Practice Fall League on
He
Sunday.
was.
Big shout out to him. He was cheering on his former teammate, Tony Montgomery, who put on a show for the team that represents Carver. Want to say Louisville. Yeah, I got that right. And Gary Gaither, he's really an all-world quarterback. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the Tri-City area, 3-year starter. He was a leading passer in 4A in his sophomore season. I think that Spencer can run the table. You know, when Aaron Rodgers said back when the Packers were 4-6, he said, I think we could run the table. And guess what they did? They went 10-6, and they ended up losing to the Falcons in the NFC Championship, but that's neither here or there. I think Spencer can run the table. I mean, they play Southwest next week, Thursday night at Otis Spencer Stadium. Northeast is another tough team in their region. Northeast beat Carver.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
so
did.
that's a team you got to watch out for too. But you got Southwest, Northeast, Ace Charter, Rutland,
They play
which they
3
just
straight
beat.
Macon schools: Southwest Macon, Northeast Macon, and Central Macon. They beat Jordan. Like I said, they'll be 7-2 when they take on Ace Charter, another Macon school. I mean, there's so many daggone Macon schools. Not even fun. We're not even including the 7 private schools that are in the
Oh, yeah.
GIAA too. But I'm with you, man. I think Spencer a lot ahead of them. They'll be, if they can go 8-2 this year and win the region, they could make a run in 2A. You don't know. You never know.
You never
Like I
know.
said, their losses are to Westover 20-14 that they easily could have won, and Carver. So both those teams are 4A and 3A respectively. So everyone in 2A they've beaten this year. I do want to throw in there Flint River, as Joe Howard's watching right now, and Flint River is taking on Skipstone. Skipstone's 3-1. Flint River 5-0.
Is
And
that a
I
home
take
game or road game?
that is a, let's see, that is I think it's a road game. Let me pull that up. I just had it. Flint River is going to be at home against Skipstone. They were on the road last week against Lakeside. I think Flint River dominates this one. They're going to go to 6-0. I think they'll be undefeated, and I don't think anyone's going to be slowing them down all the way to a state championship. So shout out to you, Joe Howard. Jimmy Cash said Spencer lost to Westover. Yeah, 4A school. I got that incorrect. I said one of the Macon schools. That was Carver. They lost to Westover 20-14. And I honestly thought that Spencer was going to beat them and should have. They had a chance to win that game, only lost by 6. The same Westover team did get beat by Northside last Thursday. And then they take on Northeast Macon. That's going to be a tough one, and Ace Charter. So they got 2 big-time games coming up here in the next 5 weeks. 3-2 now. I say 7-3, 8-2 before they end the year. But it's Flint River undefeated and looking to go to 10-0, I think, as I don't see anyone on the schedule that's going to come close to beating them. Richard.
No, not at all. I'm very impressed with Flint River after they beat Calvary Christian. We had a privilege of seeing them up in Woodbury, and I was impressed with their victory over Lakeside School down in Eufaula as well. And I'm telling you, Flint River, we got to put them on notice.
Yeah, we do. And Northeast Macon and Spencer, by the way, Spencer going to Northeast Macon. I know someone, Jimmy, you said it could be up to those 2 schools, but you got to put an Ace Charter as well. They have 1 loss, and their 1 loss is to Northeast Macon. So if Spencer beats Northeast Macon, and then Ace Charter beats Spencer, we'll have a three-way tie within that region. I'm hoping that's not what's going to happen. And if Spencer can take care of business against Northeast Macon and Ace Charter, but both those games are on the road. So that's Northeast Macon got the luck of the draw this year with their schedules. All right, let's move on now from high school football. Let's talk on some college. Let's talk about Auburn first and foremost. I saw an article written about Brian Harsin and how he left the cupboard bare for Hugh Freeze, and it showed this past Saturday. For one, losing Bo Nix was the worst thing that's ever happened in this Auburn program in the last 5 years. You're seeing what he's doing for Oregon. You have a Bo Nix, I think he can negate some of the problems they have on that offensive line. But the talent disparity you saw in Aggie land on Saturday at 12 o'clock was very obvious. And I didn't like what I saw from this Auburn team. I was thinking 8-4, it would be a great season. I know Auburn fans, when they saw undefeated, thought they maybe could upset Alabama and Georgia because they both are having down years. I don't care if they're having down years. Talent-wise, they're not even close to competing with those teams yet. Peyton Thorne, he's not it at quarterback. I don't want to put the blame on him because he didn't have a lot of time. But when you get hit and you're all of a sudden doing that, tuck the ball and all fall down to the ground without looking at receivers, and maybe you're going to take a hard lick. But if you can get the ball out to an open guy, they have playmakers on this Auburn team. Weren't able to run the football at all. Auburn just gets dominated. And now they've taken on the Deep South's oldest rivalry this week in Georgia. I don't think it's going to be a game that hasn't been a game since 2019, in which Auburn lost by 7. Ever since then, it's been games dominated by Georgia and their defense, and Auburn's had a tough time offensively to move the football in any of those games. I think it happens again this Saturday, but going back to last Saturday, this is all on Brian Harsin. So give Hugh Freeze time to get his players, just like with Dion. If it's that big of a gap in which the Texas A&M defense, they gave up 48 points and 5 touchdown passes to Tyler Van Dyke in Miami, gave up 6 points. Excuse me, not 6, 10 points, and really none offensively because they had a scoop and score. Just a bad performance from Auburn.
It truly was. They only had 2 total yards in the third quarter. It was the Auburn defense that kept him in that game. Carter Wegman for Texas A&M did get injured. Max Johnson came in, threw 2 touchdown passes. Remember, Texas A&M has a lot of talent. They had the number 1 recruiting class 2 years ago. And Jimbo Fisher's kind of on the hot seat. This was a must-win game for Texas A&M because they do have LSU, Alabama coming up. They play Ole Miss this Saturday, so there's just – or they play them in a couple of days, a couple of weeks, and Texas A&M needed this win. Now, as for Auburn, yes, they are playing on the Plains, Deep South's oldest rivalry. I always look forward to it because us covering sports here in Columbus, we have a mixture of Auburn and Georgia fans. Columbus
and
does, and Alabama. Yeah, we got to throw in Alabama too. It's really Georgia, Auburn, and Alabama. Columbus is only 45 minutes from Auburn. I would have to say that Columbus feels more like an Auburn town, even though we're in Columbus, Georgia. Yes, we do have a lot of Georgia fans in Columbus, but I get the vibe that we cover Auburn because they are in the Chattahoochee Valley.
I mean, they are close, Richard. I wouldn't be willing to say that. There's a lot of Georgia fans in here, and they've come out the woodwork too since Georgia's been more relevant. But just Auburn, just not even close. Georgia had a tune-up game against UAB. I think they dominate Carson Beck. I don't even think they get off to a slow start, in my opinion. Maybe first quarter, it'll be a close game. But this is when Georgia starts hitting their stride in week 5. They're 4-0, looking to go 5-0 against this Auburn team. On the road, it is in Jordan-Hare Stadium.
It's a true road game for Georgia.
But if you can't block A&M, good luck blocking Georgia. All right, moving on from them, let's talk. We talked Georgia. They beat UAB. I had a lot of fun, by the way. Thank you to DJ Jones, Sports Visions, covering the game. Was closer than the experts think in that first half, 28-17. They ended up dominating the second half and won 49-24. But let's talk about Alabama. This Alabama team is not going to be the team you've seen since 2018, which they've scored 40 points a game every year, it seems like. They had Bryce Young, Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, Mac Jones. They don't have that at quarterback this year. They got something like the running version, okay? Running version of like a Jacob Coker, or I'm forgetting the quarterback's name, Blake Sims in 2014. Now I wouldn't not even close to McCarron, but those guys were game managers that could do the intermediate passes, use their legs when they needed to. Jalen Milroe's more of a use his legs all the time, get the running game going and deep threat passes. But again, a game manager, and you're going to need great defense, just like you did in those seasons to win. They do got a good defense. They held Lane Kiffin, poor Lane Kiffin. I mean, my man struggled. We Sports Vision's radio show every Monday and Thursday, 4 to 6 p.m. on 92.1 Smooth R&B. Me and DJ were talking about this game with Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama magazine, and he said, I mean, Lane looked dejected. This was his one opportunity to finally take on and beat his mentor, Nick Saban, and they just couldn't do it. They were just it had no offensive running game. Quinshawn Judkins was a non-threat. Jackson Dart looked putrid and looked mediocre. And a great win for Alabama. They still got some losable games. They play Mississippi State this week at Mississippi State. Then they got A&M. They still got LSU. Still got Tennessee. Those are losable games, but a big win for Coach Saban and Coach in Alabama. And I think they found their identity too. Jalen Milroe is definitely going to be the starting quarterback. There is no debate in that. Big win for Alabama. They take on Mississippi State this week. I think they dominate that game as well. But give me your thoughts against Ole Miss this past Saturday, Richard.
I thought that Alabama's offense looked the same as it has all season. It was the defense that stepped up. It was 7-6. Ole Miss's offense just did not show up to this game. I mean, they really choked. They had an opportunity. Nick Saban's defense completely dominated Lane Kiffin's offense. Usually,
Right.
Lane Kiffin is the one that will move the ball down the field against Alabama. He's done it in the past, and he had a huge opportunity to do that with creative play calling, opening up the field, and getting those receivers open in space. Jackson Dart making some of those throws, those timely throws, but he had no time to throw the football, and he looked suspect, and Alabama's defense shut them out. And I think that the biggest turning point is when it was 7-6 and Ole Miss was driving down the field, to at least kick a field goal and to go up 10-6 at the half would be huge for Ole Miss. When they missed that field goal, I knew that Alabama was going to find a way to win. Ole Miss kept Alabama in that game, and all Alabama needs to do is a big play to wild up that crowd and to get them excited. And when you get down on Alabama's defense, it's hard to recover from that. And Ole Miss let one slip away.
They did. And Alabama now continuing as them or LSU. We talked with Mr. College Football on the Sports Visions radio show, and we talked about this. We talked about, is Alabama done? And he says not even close. And so that was a great interview, and glad that I was able to do that, and excited about what we got coming up with Sports Visions. But moving on from Alabama, let's talk a little bit about Prime. One thing I want to say is media likes to bring someone up to tear them down. Roster wise, they're not ready for the Oregons. Give them 3 years, they'll be fine. I know everybody loves to beat down Deion Sanders. Josh Pate of the late kick was talking about this as Deion tax. Many people thought he was already ready to win a national championship in year one. No, they're not. And coaches do want to go after a guy that comes into their profession and doesn't have to do near the hard work. And I'm not saying he's not a hard worker. What I'm saying is Deion didn't have to take the same route that a lot of these coaches have. And so that frustrates them. And then he's coming in with a lot of flair and he's getting a lot of notoriety. And they're feeling like it's not deserving in their opinion. So if they're going to take their shots, they better take them early. And Dan Lanning did, and they dominated. And Bo Nix looks great. But I mean, Colorado's going 7-5, 8-4 this year. Maybe, probably even 6-6. They got a couple losable games on their season. They got next week at home against USC. USC's defense is not as good as Oregon's, but that Colorado defense is bad. And if Bo Nix was able to put on a show, What do you think Caleb Williams is going to do too?
Oh, he's gonna light it up. With Colorado, you get what you get. It is Dion. It is Coach Prime. They're a couple years away. Yes, I mean Travis Hunter would have made a little bit of a difference, but I still think Oregon would have blew them out. Oregon was just a better team. They had better players, and it was at Autzen Stadium. That's a hard place to play. Colorado's had a fine season up to this point. This does not defy their season. I know that all the bandwagon fans have fallen off and they don't want to watch Colorado anymore. No, I mean, Big Noon Kickoff is going to be in Boulder at noon. I mean, the USC game is still going to be a big game. Colorado is still going to be a big draw. It's one loss. And I think that Colorado is exceeding their expectations because the win total, over under win total, was 2.5 wins for
Yeah.
Colorado this year. And they have 3 so far. And I do believe in what Coach Prime is doing, and he's doing it in a different way. There's no wrong way to skin a cat. Coach Prime is doing it in a different way. He's got 2 coordinators who are former head coaches. When you have a good coaching staff around you, you're able to recruit players and buy into your system. And I can understand the jealousy from the other coaches that have been doing it for 30 plus years. But Coach Prime is going to be fine. You got the Colorado fans. He's put them on the map. I mean, now there's people that are huge Colorado fans that, were maybe casual Colorado fans in the state of Colorado.
I agree with you, Richard, and I think that it's going to take some time, but let's not get mad. And there's 2 games quickly I do want to talk about that would you obviously saw from the coaches. It meant a lot to them to get these wins for their programs. One, Ohio State beating Notre Dame, that goal line touchdown. I was there watching it on my phone as I'm coming back from the Georgia game covering against UAB, and it was a big time win for Ohio State. Many people thought Notre Dame were going to win. You saw Brian Days coming out going after an 86-year-old Lou Holtz, who I didn't even know was still relevant. Like he's been gone since 2013 before the SEC added on. Honestly, I think he may have been gone even before that. He's
Well,
been
no, he
gone.
was Thrift. He was part of the greatest show, college final with Mark May. Remember?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's been a long time, and I didn't even know he was still relevant. But Ryan Day calls him out, big win. Kyle McCord does what he needs to do enough to win. Their defense. This is the question: was if it's a hard hitting, tough nose defensive ball game, can Ohio State win? The previous couple years when they've had to do that against a smash mouth team like Michigan, they've lost. So Ryan Day, in his opinion, this was big for his program to go on the road in a hostile environment and to beat Notre Dame the way they did. I think Ohio State's one of the favorites to win it all this year, one of the biggest wins this season. And the other game, Richard, and I'll let you talk about both of them. Florida State, get that monkey off its back. Its first win against Clemson since 2014. I mean, they just not have had any success against Dabo Swinney and Florida State. That was the premier rivalry from 2011 to 2014. Both those programs are going back and forth. Who's going to take hold of the ACC? And obviously, Clemson ended up winning that. Jimbo Fisher leaves. We've seen the coaching carousel at Florida State. Big win. Jordan Travis was phenomenal. And to come up and do upset Clemson in overtime. Remember, Clemson missed a field goal because they had a kicker who wasn't even on the roster a few weeks ago. Inexcusable. Dabo Swinney obviously now has 2 losses. And Jimmy Cash, don't forget Lou Holtz. He was at the South Carolina. He did coach at Notre Dame. Lou Holtz, and he was at Arkansas. This is when Arkansas was in the Southwest back in the early 80s.
Also, didn't he coach the Jets?
He did have a little stint in the NFL, but
I think for 1 season maybe.
But big win for Florida State to go on the road in Death Valley. Still a good Clemson roster. Now you're looking, if you're Dabo, obviously you're going to have to make internal changes because you're losing your grip on the ACC. You don't do the transfer portal, and you're seeing the quarterbacks are not panning out the way they have after Trevor Lawrence. You having all those from 2015 to 2021. They made 2020. They made the playoff every single year. That's 5 straight seasons, 6 straight seasons. They made the playoff, 2 national championships, made 4 of them, went 2-2. And then now you're seeing a program that 9-3 and 10-2 is going to look like a pretty good year this year. I think they'll upset North Carolina. They may beat a Clemson team. They're going to still get some good wins. But they're not about good wins. They're about winning national championships. But Jordan Travis going on the road, Mike Norvell getting this win, able to find a way, even though everything was stacked against him. Clemson probably should have won. Florida State and Ohio State were my winners this Saturday.
First of all, I'm going to talk about Florida State and Clemson, and then I'll touch up on Ohio State and Notre Dame. I hope that Dabo Swinney embraces the transfer portal because Clemson's expectations, remember, there was 4 straight years that Clemson was in the college football playoff, national champions in 16. They were the number 1 seed in 17 with Kelly Bryant. Remember, Alabama upset them in the college football playoff. They won the national championship with Trevor Lawrence in 18. They went back to the national championship with Trevor Lawrence and lost to LSU. That was 4 years of dominance by Clemson, a
but
dynasty.
You're not even mentioned in 2015, they were undefeated, lost to
Deshaun
Alabama
Watson,
in the
yeah,
national
exactly.
championship. And in 2020, they lost in the semifinals to Ohio State. So a dominant run by Clemson, and it looks like it's over with.
I believe it is over. Florida State really is in the driver's seat for the college football playoff. But watch out for that Miami game. That's going to be a tough game, I think.
They still got North Carolina. They're a good
That's
program.
true.
Duke, they got a big game against Notre Dame. That's where game day is going to be this weekend. They're a good program. Louisville's undefeated. Syracuse is undefeated. There's a lot to still play for. It's still up for grabs. Obviously, the favorite is Florida State, but it's still up for grabs. Ohio State, though, what did you take away from that game, Richard?
My thoughts on that, first of all, Josh Pate, Once Upon a Saturday Tour.
Did you watch that?
Absolutely amazing that he gets to witness a game like that after the week before he got to witness that 61-yard walk-off field goal by Missouri. And guess what? He is going to be at the Plains this week for Georgia and Auburn, so that's pretty cool. But Kyle McCord, he's only a freshman. There were times in this game he had a 3rd and 19. He had a 4th and 9. He had a 3rd and 10. And it seemed like Ohio State's backs were against the wall. Notre Dame stopped them once when they were up 14-10. They got them on a 4th down. Okay, Notre Dame's got the ball with a 14-10 lead. So now all you got to do is just eat up clock and let Ohio State burn all their timeouts. I would say don't even give them the ball back because you know if Kyle McCord gets the ball back again, Ohio State's chances increase by marching down and getting a score. Now, Notre Dame did get a couple of first downs. That was great and everything. I thought that Marcus Freeman actually played a little too conservatively, and they pumped the football back to Ohio State. And Kyle McCord really, this was his staple win. This was his coming out party. I know that he was criticized in the beginning of the season that Ohio State looked flat against Indiana, against Youngstown State. But Ohio State, I mean, there's a reason why they were number 1 in the JP poll. I mean, they do have a lot of talent. And even though they play Penn State at the Horseshoe, they got to go to Wisconsin. You know, we just don't know with Luke Fickell in Wisconsin. And is this the year they finally beat Michigan? Ryan Day has been 0-2 the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, Michigan's got a win streak on Ohio State. I think Ohio State is another dark horse to get to the college football playoff.
I think so, too. And thank you, Mr. Greeny. Thank you so much for tuning in. Love you, my brother. Guy that I went to school with. By the way, I'm gonna hit you up because I love for you and your company to be a sponsor for all the live streams we do football wise. Get your graphic up there, and also for these shows, we need sponsors for this show. So I'll be contacting you, Cole, here momentarily. But Richard, let's talk real quick before we get out of here. Only NFL team we're gonna hit on is the Falcons. Falcons get pushed around and bullied by a Detroit team that's got a good defense. Remember, they were pretty good against Kansas City. I thought this was probably one of the tougher games. If you looked at that Falcons schedule, this is one of their tougher games they have on. It's not a very strong schedule. Tampa Bay loses, New Orleans loses. You're still tied atop the division. But if you can't run the football, which the Lions said, listen, we're going to put 10 in the box and we're going to make Desmond Ridder beat us. And guess what he didn't do? He didn't beat them. He didn't look good. I'm not a believer in him. And I think he's going to be the reason why they could make the playoffs, but why I don't think they'll make a run in the playoffs, because eventually when you get there to that level, team's going to try to negate and minimize your strength. So your weakness has got to be something that is not going to be your Achilles heel. And Desmond Ritter is that right now. I'm not hearing that he didn't have enough time. The line didn't do a great job blocking, but not a great job play calling for Arthur Smith. And don't
No.
tell me he doesn't have weapons. London was open. I mean, they still have Kyle Pitts. They get the running backs out of the backfield and Robinson and Algiers. I'm not understanding it at all. I don't. The defense did fine. They only lost 20-6. But Ritter's got to show me something more than he is now, because I feel like we're wasting a season that, and especially the next 3 or 4 years, the roster's going to start panning out as one of the top rosters in the NFL. You don't want to turn into a program and an organization which you got talent everywhere except for at quarterback. You don't want to be the Bears back in 06 when they were so close to winning a Super Bowl, but they had Rex Grossman as their starting quarterback. Anybody else the leader for that organization, they probably beat the Colts in the Super Bowl. Falcons, I'm hoping they get it right with Ritter. They do play Jacksonville. I think they beat Jacksonville because they got they got crushed by
They
Houston at
did.
D'Amico Ryans and C.J. Stroud. This Jacksonville team's 1-2. I think they're going to be 1-3. It is a London game, but again, I it's every game's really up for grabs. Even games that are winnable, and a lot of these games are winnable on their schedule, but you just never know with the way the Raiders playing.
I thought that the Falcons' offensive line played absolutely horrific. Desmond Ritter had he was sacked 7 times. They only ran the ball 10 times with Bijan Robinson. Even if the Lions are going to stack the box, you still feed the rock to Bijan Robinson. He is the reason why the Falcons are able to move the ball in the previous games. And their identity needs to be a power run team first and a stout defense. And that's what Arthur Smith did as the offensive coordinator with the Tennessee Titans. He ran the rock with Derrick Henry. He needs to get back to that offensive identity. I agree, Thrift, that Arthur Smith did not have any creative play calling. Yes, the Lions defense is good, but I don't think that they're an elite defense. I mean, they could be a top 10 defense, but they're not an all-time defense. I mean, this was embarrassing that the Falcons only scored 6 points. Yes, they're playing a good team on the road. It's only one loss. The good news is the Buccaneers and the Saints both lost. So all 3 teams are 2-1. And I'm looking at the schedule, and they play the Jaguars. I think they're going to win that game. And then they play the Houston Texans, and then they play the Washington Commanders. I mean, it's really all there for the Falcons, not only to win the division, but to make the playoffs for the first time since 2017.
Well, thank you so much for everybody that tuned in. Thank you to all our sponsors that have been Alliance Specialty Contractors, the Menifee Agency. Alliance Specialty Contractors got a huge event coming up for contractors out there. You want to expand your brand. This is for you. January 6th and 7th, contact Alliance Specialty Contractors for more information. And then it's going to be a huge thing going on at the Columbus Trade Center, January 6th and 7th, all day. And thank you to Masterwall. Thank you to Zaxby's. Thank you to Sports Visions, Morehouse School of Medicine, P&B Broadcasting, everyone that made this possible. Alex Quinney, Allstate Agency, Terry Johnson, Allstate. You want to quote today, call Terry, and Jeremy Crosby. We had a lot of fun. We got a doubleheader on Friday, Thursday, Sports Vision Radio Show, 4 to 6 p.m. Also tune into the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, his podcast he does every day. And we got a big one on Friday, Game Day live from Russell County. Then on that later that night, Russell County Valley, Richard will be on the call, and then I'll be on the call, Rick Beach for Harris County, as they take on number 1 Sandy Creek. From Richard Holdridge, I'm Thrift Barringer saying thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and we will hope you have a God bless, great rest of your week, and we'll see you on Friday. Thank you so much.